Hi kids, welcome back. Today we're learning about David and when he showed mercy. And I'm going to use these two balloons to demonstrate what mercy is. So when you do something wrong, when you sin, there's a punishment. Sin separates us from God. It's God's law, just like the law of gravity. When you step off a diving board, you fall, right? Well, the law of gravity pulls you down to the earth. And God's law of justice says that there's a consequence for sin. Just like there's a consequence if I was to take a pin and do that. There is a consequence because of the laws that exist. Well, the awesome, amazing, loving thing that God does is that He shows us mercy. Mercy describes the gift God gives us when He doesn't give us what we deserve. Ready? I'm so very thankful for God's mercy.
Last week we learned how David was anointed to be the king and how he defeated Goliath. But remember, David did not become king right away. He was still a young boy. And at this point of our story, David is hiding in the wilderness. He had served King Saul and won many battles, but now Saul was jealous of David and wanted to kill him. Saul took 3,000 men and was looking for David. David and his men were hiding in the back of a cave when Saul happened to pass by. Saul decided to go inside. David's men saw Saul and said, "Look, God said He would hand your enemy over to you. This is the day. You can do whatever you want to him." David got close to Saul and he secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Saul didn't realize that David was there. David felt bothered about what he had done, and he told his men, "I won't fight the king. God chose him." So David did not let his men fight against Saul. Then Saul left the cave and went on his way. David left the cave and called to Saul, "My lord the king." Saul turned around and David knelt low before him. "Why do you believe people who say I'm trying to hurt you?" David asked. "See, God handed me over to you today in the cave. I had a chance to kill you, but I showed mercy." David showed Saul the corner of the robe that he had cut. "I have done nothing against you," David said. "God might punish you, but I will never harm you. Let God decide who is right and who is wrong. May He protect me from you." And when Saul heard David's words, he cried, "You are more righteous than I." Saul said, "Because you have done what is good to me, even though I have done what is evil to you. Most people would kill an enemy, but you have let me go. May God reward you for your kindness." Saul realized that God was with David, and he knew David would be the king of Israel. "Just promise me you won't kill my family," Saul said. So David promised. Then Saul went home, and David and his men returned to their hiding place. So David showed mercy to Saul, his enemy, because David trusted God's plan. Jesus also trusted his Father's plan. He died on the cross so his enemies could experience God's mercy and live forever as a part of God's family.
Okay guys, so we just heard the story about how David decided to go ahead and show mercy to Saul. So I want you guys to think about 3 different ways that we could react to people when they do something that is wrong to us. So the first way is called justice. So if we're looking at justice, that means that we're giving a punishment that's deserved, okay? The second way that we can respond is through revenge. By giving revenge on somebody, that's trying to hurt somebody because they hurt us. And then the last way is mercy. And this is what David showed to Saul. So this is withholding a deserved punishment. So even though someone deserves a punishment, you withhold that punishment. Let me give you a couple of scenarios, and you guys can think of how each response would be. So if someone took the ball from you that you were playing with on the playground, let's think about a justice response, a revenge response, and a mercy response. So if someone took the ball that I was playing with on the playground, if I said, "I'm going to go tell my teacher and I want to make sure that they sit out the rest of recess," that would be justice. So they got punished for what they did, okay? The second way that I could respond to them is through revenge. So they took my ball on the playground. So the next day, I could take their ball. And now I got revenge on them because I did to them what they did to me. But then the last way that I could respond is through mercy. So I could say, you know what? They took my ball, and I'm just going to let them play with it, and I'm going to forgive them. And they don't really need a punishment for that. And so that's the way that David responded to Saul, and that's the way that God responds to us. Another example that we could look at is, so a younger sibling of yours broke one of your favorite toys when they weren't even supposed to be playing with it. So let's think about the justice response. So the justice response is we go tell mom and dad, and they have to go to their room, and they have to spend a punishment in their room of timeout. Then a revenge response. Well, if they broke one of my toys, I'm going to go to their room and get one of their toys and break it. But then a mercy response could be forgiving your sibling and saying, you know what? I'm not going to ask for a punishment for you. I'm going to forgive you for breaking my toy. So those are 3 ways that you can respond. And so let's think when people do things to us about different responses, and think about how God responds to us. And we don't deserve mercy, but he gives it to us abundantly. You guys have a great week.
Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and your dominion endures through all generations. The Lord is trustworthy in all his promises and faithful in all he does. Psalm 145:13.